Actually, I do have something that Chris, you.
Oh, nice try.
And
That's what
here's
happens
this.
for walking slow. Alright.
And that is, one of the things that I felt like, I was unfortunate, I tried to work with Chris, earlier in the week to really head it off, but I couldn't, because we have rules that right now that leaves the control of the agenda and the sequence of the agenda to the chairman. And you saw how the meeting went till 12:30 last night. And so what I would like people to do is to just simply see if we can all agree on a rule change as how we work. And that is this, that the agenda items, the order of the agenda items is set by a 2/3 majority vote, period. It's not set by the chairman, because we differ on this. And the consequence of that ends up being a surprise to the citizens that may come and be interested in this, because we don't want them to get there and think, we get to speak right after the consent items, and then we have a very long public comment on everything else but the hearing that we scheduled the meeting for. And then we have to change at the meeting, and that kind of sets everything up like we're being inconsiderate to them. So what I like people to do is to say, when it comes to setting the order of the meeting, where the consent items, the public hearing, or public comment especially, that 2/3 majority vote solves that problem. Not just simply we leave it to the chairman. It takes a little bit of power away from the chairman.
Your rule. The chairman doesn't set it, the rules do.
What I'm saying is
The rules
set-
actually
that's
have,
what I'm saying.
it's set in the
It's
rules.
set in the rules.
What I'm saying is change the rules.
So the
Okay.
point is that the change in the rules, so the rules actually set the agenda order. It says it. It doesn't say the chair sets the agenda order. It says what the agenda order is. It's right there.
Chris, why don't you be our rule reader here?
Just read the chair.
Well, here's the thing, then what we ought to do.
So you can, with 2/3 vote, change, suspend the
yeah.
rules.
Right, and that's what they did last night.
No. Here's the problem. We had a regular meeting, and then we had general public comment on anything, and then we had the hearing. And the problem is that the public comment should be at the end of the business meetings, so that we actually can have the staff and us accomplish what the purpose of the meeting is. So that the public comment, so we have all the time in the world for public comment, but we get the business done first.
So two things. The first thing is that our public hearings are our opportunity, in large part, to hear from the public.
Absolutely.
Our public hearings, whether they be officially noticed items or items of concern that people have, it is their opportunity to come and be heard. They know when the meeting starts. The public knows when this meeting starts, and they're not getting paid to be there. They're volunteering their time to come in. So they know when the meeting starts. They don't know when this business that you're talking about is going to be over. So you're asking citizens who are giving of their time to wait for staff who's being paid for their time to go first. So in representing the citizens and having the citizens come first, seems like you would want the actual citizens to come first. The other piece of this is, and I didn't say it last night, but it's true, is that they tried that in the city of Vancouver, and there was outrage that the citizens would be pushed to the end of the rest of the official business because they feel like this is their meeting. It's not your meeting, it's not my meeting, it's the citizens' meeting. So it's the public meeting. So to push them to the end, in my mind, sends a bad message. Now, as far as the 2/3 majority doing it, like they said, in the rules it sets the agenda. I didn't set the agenda. The agenda is set by the rules. So what I said was, we didn't have a public meeting for you to suspend the rules, so you couldn't do it over the phone with me, because that's a violation of the Open Public Meetings Act. So I said, I'm not gonna do this over the phone. And ultimately, you did what was appropriate, which is you go to the meeting, you suspend the rules, and you do that. If you want to do that for a specific meeting, you do it at board time. You do it in a public meeting the week ahead of time. You say, hey, I want to switch this. Now, if you want to switch the rules forever to have public comment at the end, I'm definitely not supportive of that.
Chris, what, does it say that when we have a public hearing, in addition to a regular meeting, does it say that the public comment is in between those two meetings?
No, it's before. It's before public hearing.
What it specifically says is, well, you want me to interpret it. I'm gonna be real specific because you're asking me, and this does not say, it says, all county board hearing agendas shall provide for the following. And it doesn't say in any particular order, it just says it shall provide for the following. Now, the way you've implemented it in the past has been that this is the order we follow. We take any special recognitions first, we do the call to order, the Pledge of Allegiance, and all those. So in part, this is a combination of what it says, which doesn't require a particular order, in your past practice, which does call for a particular order. So the first answer to your question is, I don't believe this mandates that it go one order or another because it doesn't say in the following order. It just says you have to have all of these items on here if they're applicable. But your past practice has been that you always follow that, and you're, in some respects, governed by your past practice, and you should be consistent in it. If you want to amend that, I'd say that we should go through the same process to amend it as we did when you established this policy in the first place, so that we're consistent with the way in which we adopted this rules of procedure, unless you want to do it on a one-time basis, which occurred last night. I would only caution that one-time practices, making policy based on one-time issues, usually comes back to haunt you, but that's not, that's up to you. That's a policy issue. So, I'm glad to answer any other questions that you have.
Well, I have a remark.
Go ahead, Tom. Commissioner.
One of the things I noticed yesterday in our attempt to get our business done and in a timely fashion, we started off pretty good. We were on a roll, but then when we got to the issue, I think we had a lot of people testifying that would not have testified normally had we been on a normal schedule. And while I want to respect the people when they come there and keep them on the agenda like we had, where we always listen to them up front, and because so many times in the past, for the most part, as we go through, have public comment, and they speak their piece, for the most part, the room pretty well clears out.
Yep.
And then after that, they move forward pretty fast. Even though it has some consequences and it creates some unhappiness, when we have special events like we had yesterday, I think that we don't have to be beyond going back and say, hey, we've got a whole bunch of people that want to say the same thing for the next 4 hours. I think we have to weigh that. And then I don't know if I'm convinced that it really worked out that well last night. And I just kind of like to hear from the rest of you what you thought the impact was, or what it could have been if it had been the other way.
Well, the meeting went so long that it would be unavoidable that people were going to leave just simply from the beginning of just for the length of that one period of public comment. The thing is that what I want to avoid is the appearance of unfairness. They come to a meeting with a published agenda that says your public comment is before your public hearing, and we end up with having to change the public comment to after the hearing because we want to hear what they have to say about the hearing first. That by itself is this particular agenda. We expect and we hope that many people will come and participate, and have a voice in this resolution, this fee waiver resolution. That by itself is the important business of the day, and we allow those people the opportunity to participate in that process. If we end up putting everything else, which is just simply general purpose off the agenda, public comment, before those people who came for that published agenda, we cause those people to go home and not even participate on what the county business, the important business really is. So what I'm suggesting here is that if we have a high visibility public hearing, that in those cases, we put the priority on that agenda item and put everything else, which is just general purpose public comment, at the end. Because that is the reason we publish that public hearing, is so that people can come and be heard on that agenda item, on that hearing. That's a priority over everything else.
So two things. First of all, there is a way to deal with that on a one-time basis that you don't have to do it at the dais and surprise people, including myself. The way to do that appropriately is if you see a meeting like that, if you see a hearing like that you believe it will be that way. We have today, Wednesday. We know what our public hearing agenda is for next Tuesday, right?
Right.
So we already know what's on the agenda. If you see something that you say, oh gosh, this is going to be one of those weeks that we need to flip it. You're in a public meeting, this is the appropriate time and place to make a motion, to suspend the rules, and to ultimately get the 2/3 or 3/3 to be able to suspend the rules and change the order. That is the appropriate time to do so. So that's the first thing. There is an opportunity for that. We just got to think ahead a little bit about how to make that work. Secondly, while we set a priority agenda, we do not set the priorities for the public. In a public hearing, the public chooses what the priority is. You don't. I don't. I've been here for 8.5 years. I've been in a lot of public hearings, and in 99% of them, I didn't choose the priority. The citizens chose it. Sometimes it's CRC. Sometimes it's been Stordall or fish issues or the growth plan, even though it wasn't on the agenda. The people choose what their priority is. You don't get to. So we got to be careful about saying this is the priority as if there is a definitive answer for that. That may be your priority. And we certainly want to make sure people are heard in those public hearings that we set. I agree. But there is a way for us to deal with that. If we think there is going to be significant public input on general issues and we want to make sure that we get the hearing agenda out first, we can do that. But we just have to do it in this meeting. That is the legal and correct way of doing it. And it gives us flexibility.
I'm not sure what you just said. Let me summarize and tell me if I got it right here.
Go ahead.
The bottom line is that we would not change the agenda once we start our public meeting. We would not change the order. We want to avoid that when things are foreseeable, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we're on agreement there.
Mhm.
So on this particular item, we want to make sure that people who are there for this issue, which is gonna be a significant issue, that they get heard in a timely manner. So we would put the general purpose public comment after this public hearing for this coming meeting. Are we in agreement there?
No. First of all, the coming meeting doesn't have the agenda item you're
Well,
talking
I'm
about. The
talking about
28th
this
does.
meeting, the 28th.
So for the 28th, first of all, we closed public comment, but we continued the public hearing on it for deliberation purposes. I think that it would be appropriate for us to take testimony on the changes that on the amendment. So everybody has. So totally agree with that, but we have done, and Commissioner Milky mentioned, we've done public comment first as a practice and as a rule. We have done it first, and it's worked great. There are very, very rare circumstances where it will be so long for public comment that it will somehow disenfranchise or hurt the ability of the public hearing to go forward. And we've had extremely important public hearings. I know that you think this one is important. This is an extension of the fee holiday we already created. I know you think it's huge. It's an extension of what we already did. We've done comp plans. We've done cowlitz issues. We've done huge public hearings before, and it's worked fine. And Commissioner Milky's right. A lot of times people just want to come, they want to be heard. It's super important to them that you hear their issue and you help them. And then they've been heard. Then they can go home. They're not there for the fee holiday. They just want to come in because the dog next door is screaming at them and they've got to come talk to their commissioner. And then they're going to go home. And it works. I promise you, it works. This was an aberration. This is something that was unique. But it was just that. There was never, have you had another public hearing since you've been a commissioner that the public testimony on the issues that were important to them, and not just the public hearing, that it was so long that you felt like it was hurting the hearing?
It sounds like we're not gonna be agreeing on this, so let me do this, let me ask if our third commissioner here, if he agrees that we put public comment for this 28th meeting at the end of our public hearing.
Tom, do you hear the question?
Yes, I heard the question. I have, if you put it toward the front, and you're gonna have public comment on every proposed amendment, it could go for a long time. If they put the public comment first, I think that they will speak their piece and move on, except for those people who want to stay and listen to that. I do agree that the one yesterday was exceptional and out of the ordinary, and we in this, and you know, when we have a time issue that makes it critical, we should always move that up with a little bit of buffer time in there, so we don't wait until the last minute to do something. It may happen, and then we may have to do a special circumstance. But it's true that the people, we are there for the people, and when they have a fire in their belly about a certain issue, they would like to be heard and know that they're going to be heard, and then they get on their way and leave. And so I'm inclined to keep the comment toward the front, except for special occasions. And I'm thinking that for the most part that we've addressed public discontent with the appointment of Mr. Benton, and I don't think we had that much disappointment or input specifically that came there for the proposed policy that we wanted to make on the theologies.
Tom, I want to make sure we're understanding, we're talking about the same, on the same page. The public hearing includes all of the public comment about that resolution, so they can talk about we can put out the proposed amendments ahead of time that we can foresee. We can make sure that we listen, and of course that we're not in any way trying to restrict or put them off. We want to make it's really not a decrease in the public comment, it's moving them up in priority so that if they came there for this published agenda, that we make sure they are there and we hear them before we run out the clock on something else. So the idea is that we would have consent items, and then we would have our public hearing, we would propose the amendments that we know about, we would ask for all the public who wants to comment as much as they want on that agenda item, on that public hearing, and then we would debate on that, vote on it, and then we would have everything else that we're there as long as they want without having to have the rest of the staff tied up waiting for the specialized staff that has to be there for the public hearing. So there's really two public hearings, or I'm sorry, public commenting times. One is what's on the agenda of the hearing, and we maximize that, and we make that a priority. That's what I expect that most people will have come for. And anyone else who wants to come and talk about anything else, we give them the opportunity after at the end. So it's really a matter of how, a lot of this has to do with perspective. The reason that we publish the hearing in the newspaper ahead of time is to make sure that people can come, participate on that, be heard, and that, so hopefully we'll have people that will come for that. This puts them on a higher priority than everything else.
There's, we have a couple hearings before the 28th. Why don't we put this on discussion during the next board meeting, before the public?
Okay.
I see advantages and disadvantages. I do get concerned about those who don't want something to happen at all might try to filibuster, but then if we sense that happening, you can always call for the question too. So I think the majority of the people don't come for the specific agenda items. I think they usually come to vent, for example, during budget or collective bargaining agreements and things of that nature. That's what they come for, the more hot button issues. We don't have that many hot button issues. So while we might be all split on this thing, and we have a couple hearings between now and then, that'd be a good discussion to bring up before the public.
So you're thinking about talking about it at the public hearing next week a little bit?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
You meant board time, right?
No, at the hearing.
Oh, just simply at the regular board, the
Board
next
communication.
board meeting, not, what do you call it? Our public
Hearing.
meeting
Public hearing.
on Tuesday.
Yep.
That what you
Yeah.
talking about, Tom?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
All right.
And we'll kind of get a general feel, explain it to them, and ask them, do you usually come up here for the consent agenda, or do you come up for the actual specific resolutions that we work on?
Okay, that's good.
Cool. All right.